Hi, and welcome to Safe Space. I'm your host, the artistic psychologist. This podcast aims to end the stigma surrounding mental health, one conversation at a time. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy. Today I have Pauline Wairimu on the show. I call her Auntie Pauline, not Pauline. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
Great. I feel very fresh and high in spirit.
Are you excited to be here? Are you nervous?
I'm so excited. You have no idea.
Yeah.
It's a day I've been looking forward to, and I'm glad we are here.
Yeah, I'm also excited to have you on. Yeah, you're like family, and I think the episodes I have family members on are always my favorite because I'm the most comfortable doing those ones. So I think it's easier for me. Maybe that's why I like them so much. But karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about the pandemic and your personal experience through the pandemic, as well as your professional opinion on some things. Yeah. So let's just get into it. Could you take us back to 2020 March? Yeah, that's when the pandemic began. Do you remember how that was for you when you heard about the pandemic for the first time in Kenya? How did you feel? How did you react?
Okay, so it's been about 2 years.
Yeah.
But I remember it like it was yesterday. In fact, I think it was on 13th of March.
Wow, you remember the exact
2020.
Yeah.
So I got this message on my phone from my son's school saying, come over and pick your child as soon as possible. So I stopped everything I was doing and I dashed to school. Then we were told to pick our children and go home and await further information. So to be quite honest, I don't think I made, like I didn't panic or I didn't think about it. So I was sort of numb until, of course, much later when it hit me on what that really meant for everyone else and for us as a country. Mm-hmm. When I got home and saw news, had what had really happened to the rest of the world.
Okay. That was on the first day that it was announced that you were already told to go and pick your son from school. Already, was that the first day that it was announced in the country that the school called you and told you come and pick him up?
I had heard about the pandemic or the disease, possibly a week or two before that. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, that's the first time it got that close to me.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe a week before that, I'd gone to my bank and seen 2 Chinese nationality wearing masks. And I thought, you guys, what is this? I mean, why do you have to do this? So it's until when I was called by the school to pick my child is when it hit me higher. This thing has come to Kenya like it's real now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And what were your main concerns or worries at the time?
I really didn't think it was anything big. Mm-hmm. In fact, I thought it was just something that would pass by. Yeah, as quickly as it came.
Yeah, I think that was it for most of us. We just thought like, oh, okay, we're going to be home for 2 days, 1 week, then, we go back to, or we hoped that's what would happen. But of course, I mean, now it's more than 2 years and we're still trying to navigate the whole situation. Okay, so before we touch on how the pandemic affected you personally, I'd like us to chat a little bit about your work as a financial coach and the things you've noticed over this period. So could you tell us a little bit about what you do, what exactly it is that you do?
Okay, so on a day-to-day basis, I'm a financial literacy coach. I train people on how to manage their personal finances and also for business startups, SMEs, how to manage the business finances. So since the pandemic, to be quite honest, my business has really gone down. One, because it's people-oriented. So before the pandemic, I usually used to meet my clients physically, one-on-one, or in groups. And you know that after the pandemic, that was stopped. So I'm one of those people, just like many business people, whose productivity and output, and no money. Yeah, well, I was really affected.
Okay, so you had to transition from meeting people in person to, did you eventually start doing your sessions online?
Inevitably, yes. So I had to be creative and see how best to continue. Although, to be quite honest, it was never really the same. Because being a coach, it's better when you meet the person physically, one-on-one, and more so because of the feedback. So it wasn't really the same. Though I tried to metamorphose or transition into online sessions, but it's really never been the same again. Yeah.
I think for many people that's the case, because there's some I don't even call it magic of meeting people in person. Of course, there's advantages of doing things online because you can do it wherever you are and it's easier. But meeting people in person, I think you gain so much. You can even tell a lot from their body language, their facial expressions, and I think you're better able to assess certain situations. But now, of course, we had to transition to doing things online, and for many people, that was a bit difficult. What were your challenges doing the sessions online, if you had any?
So one of the challenges, as we've said, is feedback. When somebody is behind the screen, you can't quite pick it. You know, the cues, the body language, the non-verbal communication. Then two, for the older students or the older coaches, there was a bit of resistance technology-wise. Not everyone maybe was able to be having bundles or just even a screen, a laptop, to do those sessions. And also because I heavily relied on employees and institutions from where my clientele are drawn from, most companies then scaled down on their budget for training. So those were the major challenges. Plus screen fatigue. It's a bit tough to be on the screen for maybe 2 hours plus. So those were the major challenges. And then, of course, what we said at the beginning, you know how you think it was going to go away. So you're doing it, but not with such oomph and such zeal, because you know, this is temporary, but how wrong were we all? Yeah, 2 years down the line, we are still here and it's still with us.
Yeah, that's true. When you talk about screen fatigue, I realize, I think I never thought about that much, but because now we do a lot of things online because of the pandemic, I realize even using my phone is so exhausting. Like after doing sessions online, maybe you're having meetings online, I don't want to see my phone or anything anymore. Like I just want to maybe to read a book or walk outside or sleep. So for me, I found that it even became difficult for me to reply text messages. Like I just became so exhausted because you're constantly on the screen, you're talking to people, you know, online. Then now afterwards, maybe people have texted you and you need to reply. So I just got so tired. For me, it was really, really difficult. Yeah. And I think it still is. Yeah, but
it still is.
Yeah,
it still is. It takes a lot of energy to do that. First, I mean, just in the preparation, closing off the windows, shutting the door, putting off everyone. And mostly if it's in a home environment, you have other people who don't understand, e.g. the dog,
yes. The dog,
or the worker, or even family. Sometimes they interrupt without knowing. So of course it then looks so professional.
That's true. Other things like maybe there's construction going on around, or I don't know, a pump outside making noise. It's very hectic, but anyway, we managed. Yeah. Did you start to have an increase in customers at any point during the pandemic, or did your customers just become less and less as we went along?
My customers became less and less. Yeah.
And it's because of what you said.
Yes. So for me overall, I have decreased income over a period of time. And inevitably, it has made me think slightly outside the box on how to go forward with this. Yeah.
And what changes have you done to help you with that?
So, thankfully, after some time, we are now able to interact a bit more freely. So one of the things that I have told myself I'll need to do is to go where the client is, instead of them having to come to me, and to broadly think about what my client is experiencing wherever they are. So some of the things I've had is to go to the ground, mashinani, look for that mama mboga or the kiosk owner or the business owner who's somewhere down on River Road and is going through the pandemic effects. So just to have a conversation. Also, to just look for another line of business.
Yeah.
Thinking of maybe retailing, manufacturing, just to make sure that you create another revenue stream of income instead of depending on one source of income.
And how was it for you transitioning from, because I'm assuming before this was something that was a steady source of income for you, to now this is something that you can't really depend on as much. How was that for you?
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. So, because to be quite honest, from the beginning, I didn't think it would last this long. And the irony is, I'm a financial coach. My life didn't change much. Things still continued in terms of spending. And I remember, I think I even overdid certain things because now I had too much time in my hands. So you know how to tell your brain that now you need to change, there's no longer work. It's not easy. So at first, I know I really did lots of cleaning in the house. I actually overdid cleaning in the house. And my neighbors were always laughing at me because every day 2 carpets went out on the balcony. Then like every day was general cleaning. But then also there was some fear that gripped me at some point when I realized now the numbers were becoming people that I know and it wasn't going to go away. So I sort of had to find something to fill in the time. And I went on a shopping spree almost every other time, stocking up, especially food. Because you know the way there were always rumors, oh, we'll be locked down, so you can't even move out of your compound to the road. So for me, I actually spent much more. And you see, the problem is I wasn't getting in as much. So that maybe is the flip side. And it is until later that it hit me that, look, you really need to start creating some income once more if you have to continue spending like that. But with time, I realized it's because I wasn't facing the truth or reality about this pandemic. So I had to fill that gap with something.
Yeah. It also sounds like you were just trying to hold on to some sense of normalcy, like whatever was normal for you, you were just trying to hold on to that, which I think happened to most of us. And you mentioned the cleaning. I think I can relate to that though. When I feel like things are a bit hectic, I want to, okay, let me tidy up this space and just clean, you know, and all of that. I think sometimes it's you're tricking your brain that, okay, you know, now that I've taken care of this mess, maybe, you know, as much as I can't take care of the mess in the world, at least I've taken care of the mess inside my house, and that calms you down a little bit. Then, you know, again, we keep it moving. We do it again the next day. Yeah, but eventually we do have to face whatever it is that's going on and accept that, okay, this is scary, but, you know, we'll just take it a day at a time and keep moving. So do you save? Did you have any savings that you could turn to at that time?
Yes, I did have some savings, and over a period of time, I depleted that. So in my course of work, yes, I used to tell my students, or I used to practice that have 3 to 6 months emergency kitty or funding. But you know what? Right now, the truth is have 24 months of emergency kitty. So when I depleted that, because maybe it's been about 2 years now, it hit me that 3 to 6 months isn't enough. Change the narrative and tell your students that 18 to 24 months. Because what if another corona came? Or what if another situation other than corona came? How long will you stay out of a job? So it has made my perspective of savings also change. And yeah, the thing is I depleted what I had.
And did you deplete the savings right at the beginning of the pandemic, or was it maybe much later, or maybe this year?
Maybe let's say up to 1 year after the pandemic. Yeah.
Wow, that's okay. Wow, that's interesting. And I think that's the reality for me. And at least you had savings. I know for some people that's not something they do. Like putting savings aside is not something they do. We just make the money and then use the money. So now when we got into the pandemic, and maybe for many people they were losing their jobs, now there's no money. Yeah, so now you don't know what to do. And it was a really rough time, I think, for many people. And yeah, now we just had to learn how to do things differently. Yeah. Okay. What are the main trends you've been seeing amongst your clients during the pandemic period, or what would you say are the main concerns financially amongst your clients?
So one of the things is lack of savings, because our default setup, I think, is spend, then save. And it's been difficult to try and change that, because if this is how you are socialized, then to try and kill a habit just overnight isn't easy. So the reality that, so if I had savings, maybe it would have made a little difference. So that has created a lot of turmoil, mentally, psychologically, financially. And the other stress I've seen my clients have is many lost their jobs or were put on half pay. And then finally, there's nowhere to turn back to. So there's even now a lot of hopelessness and strife, and then the high cost of living hasn't helped the situation either. So yeah, there's a lot of suffering right now. And in the midst of all this, as a financial coach, you're supposed to give hope and tell people that, look, we can still hack through this when everyone is crying that there's no money. And of course, we know that money is not everything, but I can tell you it does make a difference if you have it. So those are the real struggles that my clients are having right now. And I want to say it's not easy to pick ourselves up when, let's say, your only source of income has been affected. And life has to go on. They say life has to go on, but how will it go on when you do not have hope? So the first thing is to actually try and give them hope against all odds. Yeah.
And what financial advice would you give people right now? In case something like this were to happen again, what advice would you give people?
So borrowing from my own example, one is that we really have to reevaluate how or where we're spending money on. And I think it would be prudent to just safely say that for now, until maybe we get to back to where we are, because I believe one day we will get back to where we were, is to really decide what is a necessity and what is a want. So really relook at your budget. And I know practically you may not really get rid of some things. Some things have to be paid for because life does have to continue. Bills don't stop during the pandemic or after. So reevaluate where you're spending your money or how you're spending. Secondly, reinvent yourself. If you lost your job, if you're on half pay, what else can you do? There are usually opportunities, even in this kind of situation, that will crop up. So go beyond thinking what a basic customer need would be and look for an opportunity that you can make money during this situation. And then lastly, I think we have to adapt. Really, we have to have a complete mind shift or mindset in how we look at things. This pandemic may stay longer than we may think or might go, but if you don't do things differently, you will be lying to yourself. So adapt. What are these areas that you need to look at? Let's say you have a bank loan, a debt. Talk to your bank. Try and extend the repayment period. If your interest rate is a bit high, you can negotiate it to something manageable. You may have to make a little bit of adjustments in your lifestyles. Maybe now move to a place that's closer to your workplace. So basically just being frugal. This versus that. So Uber versus public transport. Public transport versus taking a walk in the evening from work. Such small things may really make a big impact on your budget. Yeah.
Okay, it's true. For, I think especially for maybe the younger generation, okay, I don't know if it's only the younger generation, even perhaps people who are also a bit older. I think sometimes those small changes, it can come as a bit of shock, but for some people, maybe it's also like a pride thing. Now you're thinking, like, for me, I'm used to using Ubers, and Ubers are like where it's at for me. So thinking about maybe using public transport is just like, no, I cannot possibly do that. And like you said, those small changes is what can help you at least get by until you're steady enough, and just to get back on your feet. So I guess that's advice anybody can take in and think about. You've mentioned finding other ways to make money or get an income. I know you've once mentioned to me passive income. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so passive income is ways and means of making money that don't involve you directly. So of course, it would have to come from your savings. And these are the savings that we are saying are not existing, or we believe that do not exist. So basically, it would have to be from a point of view where you are having an income. First and foremost, you must have a source of income. Then you need to sacrifice some bit of that amount and put it away in an investment so that it can grow. And over a period of time, an investment that doesn't require you to physically be present. It's not like you wake up 8 to 5 to produce or make money. So we need to think that way from as early as possible, so that the end, maybe as we get to retirement age, or as we call it a day, hang our boots and move to something else, you will still be able to meet your daily needs, bills, basically food, medical, just what makes the world go round. If you're able to do that early enough, then the end will be beautiful. So let's all strive to look for ways and means of first saving money, then putting that money in areas that don't require us to be present, and that inevitably will lead to passive income.
Okay. And do you have examples of some of these investments people can make?
Yes, depending on your age again, because investments do depend on your age. When you're a little bit younger, you are a high risk taker, so you can put in money in forex trading, in cryptocurrencies, high risk, high return. But as you grow older, when you get to my age, you want to be sure that your capital is preserved. So more subtle places like treasury bills, bonds, money market, those are really good areas that don't require you to be present every day. And there's also power in compound interest. You could put in money in a pension fund, and over a period of time, you'll be amazed at how much you'd have earned without doing much. So those are some of the areas that I would recommend. Again, think of your risk appetite. That's the most important. What you invest in today is what I won't invest in. So if I'm not a risk taker, it's safer for me to put in money in a place that won't make me lack sleep. Because investments shouldn't make you lack sleep. Just because you put in money in a place and you're not sure about the future, then that's like throwing away money. Yeah.
Okay then. I think if anybody wants any more information to do with finances, we'll leave your details in the description, and they can look for you and get educated and all of that. I'd like us to take it to a more personal level. You are a mother, Yeah, and eventually, like you said, school sent children home and they were studying from home eventually. And this was something very new. How was dealing with that transition for you, having your son home almost constantly?
That's an interesting question, and I think I want to really share genuinely what happened. So as I said, we didn't think it was gonna take long. Then we got information that look, you have to have a laptop, a printer, and Wi-Fi for the children to go online. So that meant investing some amount in those gadgets. Then it's a situation where I hadn't experienced that before. As I said, my work was more of personal one-on-one physical. So I had to quickly learn, how do you log in into a system? And you see, this son is looking at you like you should know better because you're the mother or the older person. So we had a bit of struggle adapting to that kind of learning. Then I realized he was getting very moody and edgy, the screen fatigue issue. And also because I have a day nanny, I took up the roles. So you won't believe how hard it is to be a nanny. Suddenly, there wasn't enough time. So I'm busy in the kitchen scrubbing dishes, and he comes up and says, "Mom, where's my break? Where's my tea? It's lunchtime. You haven't cooked." So I had a bit of issues with, again, time management and just adjusting. So anyway, but with that experience, I learned I can never be a nanny. That I have accepted. And two, I can never be a teacher, especially to my son. It wasn't funny. And then I think for me at the home front, that was the issue. So those two things, just balancing everything. And then plus, as I said, I had to think of my work and to try and adapt and look for these clients online. So just juggling everything. Plus there's a psychological effect on it. When now I started seeing those numbers being people I know, I was gripped with fear. Now, the other thing is that I lived in a community where there were other people, my neighbors and all. So people reacted differently. But the one thing that we were all going through silently without talking to each other is we were afraid of the loss of income because we all stayed home. So with time, it starts getting to you that you're just removing money and none is coming back. And you had me tell you earlier on, I went on a shopping spree. So of course, I think I overdid a little bit, and the fear of the money is getting less and less. Yeah.
Okay. And did you have any concerns as a mom on how the pandemic would affect your son?
Yes, I did. I did, especially the moods. And I felt helpless that he has no idea that I'm going through my own issues, first and foremost. And also I'm helpless because I can't help him with what's going on. So he kept asking, how long do you think we'll do this? How long? I miss my friends. I want to go back to school. And I was like helpless because I also didn't have an answer. So that for me made me feel very bad because I also was going through missing my friends, not being able to walk freely. And I think I need to mention this, that in the beginning I was stuck on the screen. Every time the Minister of Health said there's a press conference, I dropped everything and ran to listen. So there's even a joke in the estate where, because we formed a WhatsApp group, they kept asking, so Pauline, how many people today have passed on? How many people are infected? Because they knew I'm the one who's always on the screen listening. But when I look back, I think it was still a way of trying to cope with my fear. And I'm not sure up to this time if that was really a good thing or bad. Yeah.
Probably. I think it's okay to some extent, but if we're constantly taking in that information, then it's not good for us because that now just increases the fear, makes you more anxious. So it's better to maybe control the amount of news you're taking in about the pandemic. Because, when we keep seeing those numbers, how many people have died, how many people are sick, I'm sure it was making you more anxious and more on edge. Yeah, so maybe in small
Exactly.
doses, yes.
Yeah. So maybe I overdid it. And of course, with time, the disease caught up with me.
But it's the overdoing it is something I'm sure many people went through, not just in different things, maybe overwatching the news or over cleaning, like you said, over drinking, overeating. When things turn upside down, it's very hard to keep yourself in check. So it's okay or expected that you'll sort of go off track. So while before you were just drinking a normal amount of alcohol, now you're over drinking. And it can take some time to realize, like, ish, I'm drinking like a bottle of wine every day of the week, or I'm thorough cleaning the house every 3 days in a week, or now I'm eating, I don't know, a whole cake from at cafe every day of the week. So I think that happened to many of us. Yeah, we just sort of lost control. Then it took some time for us to realize, like, well, I hope for most of us, we were able to just bring ourselves back and be like, okay, maybe this is a bit too much. I can tone it down a bit and try and just keep myself in control. So in your essay, you mentioned that all of you are afraid. You're not making money, but you're spending money. Is there any way as a community you got together and just helped each other out?
Yes, we did. So over a period of time, since we had so much time in our hands, we started making meals communally. So everybody got to a point where they made what they are good at. So for me, it was pancakes. I used to do very faithfully pancakes almost every morning and distribute. Then people were good at roasting, so we started emptying our fridges communally for everyone to eat. So then we would decide if we are having late lunch or late dinner. But then, of course, it costed money. It was our way of coping. And I'm really grateful to that community, because I don't know what I would have done if they were not there. So also the children got to be friends with each other, because with the daily routine of school you hardly meet. I also got to meet neighbors I've never met for 3 years. Can you imagine staying in the same compound and you've never physically met that person? So that also gave us a chance to know each other and discuss exactly what was going on. But when I reflect back, I think the first part of the pandemic, or phase 1 as we call it, wasn't bad. The second time, or the second wave, was really bad. And why do I say so? Because I think we knew what it means to be locked. So now, the first time it was, like happy-go-lucky. We're like, this thing, while it lasts, let's do this. But then now, when we're locked down again, like majorly for the second time, the fear was even more, because we had already known what it means. So again, lack of income, you don't know how long this will last. And then we started falling sick. I mentioned that I got hit.
Yes.
The second time I was hit. So I was so afraid of dying. To be quite honest, I got a lot of support again from my neighbors. They fed me every day. But that thing of the food is kept at the door for you. You can't have contact. You sort of feel like you're a stigma, And then I was afraid of dying, to the extent that I never used to sleep. The whole night I stayed awake. But when I peeped at the window and I saw like it's now starting to be morning, that's when I would close my eyes. And I didn't think I would do this. So it hit me that you have no idea what the impact of this disease is until it happens to you. And I have a big sister, and I want to sincerely thank her for reaching out to me. She literally called me every single day to check up on me. And even when I thought I didn't need help, she brought it out and told me, don't be silly, just get out and go see the doctor, get a review done, including sending a driver to pick me and drop me. Because at that point, you feel quite helpless. And I learned that it's not about money. Actually, that disease or this disease is not about money. You can have it and still it won't help you. So those were my real struggles. Luckily, my son wasn't hit, and the people around me were not hit. I was the only one. But thank God I was the only one, because then they were able to come through for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say that the effects of having COVID, was it, what was heavier on you? Was it the physical effects or the psychological effects?
The physical, just the feeling ill, and the not being able to scrub the house, and not being able to cook, because this became like a way of life, and not being able to meet. There's a place in the compound we used to meet where we were having that koinonia, the food. So I wasn't able to join in, and that physical isolation, I think, was the worst part for me. The infirmity, the not feeling well. Yeah.
And in the home, now that you are sick, were you just locking yourself up in your room? Were you getting out, since your son is also with you in the house? Was it a case of you in one part of the house and he's in the other part of the house?
I was alone in the house. He wasn't physically present, and neither was a nanny. So the most I could do is just go to the back of the house for some sunlight, vitamin D, and just try go up the stairs, down the stairs for exercises. So I was alone in the house.
That must have been so tough.
It was. That physical isolation, I think, for me was really the hardest part. And then just the feeling of you have a stigma, or you are the stigma. But it was necessary because of the risk of infecting others. Yeah, I had to go through that.
Yeah. I don't know. I wish we could have done the isolation a bit differently, because I honestly think that's what really scared most people and took the morale away from most people. Because even, you're afraid of even going to hospital, because you're going to be put by yourself, isolated. Even when the doctors are coming to you, they're dressed up in, covered from head to toe. You can't have any visitors. And I think usually when people are in hospital or you're sick, just seeing other people can really help you get better faster, and at least have some hope that things will be okay. But when you're on your own and then you're already struggling, it doesn't work out. Yeah. Do you know how it was for your son when you were sick?
Yes, I do. He kept on calling and checking, and most times I had to pretend I'm okay, but he could pick it from my voice. And I think for him, he told me the hardest part was the fact that he was away, and not there to see if it's true what I'm saying. Am I well? But so I could pick fear from his voice and the constant messages or texts. And he kept on asking, have you gone back to be tested? Are you now negative? And of course, you had to take some time before you get tested again. So that waiting and the anxiety of when will you turn negative? Yeah, I think that affected him.
And during this period when you were sick and waiting to get better, what gave you some form of sanity or hope?
That I was at home.
And not in hospital.
Yes, that I wasn't hospitalized. That gave me a lot of hope, and also just the knowing that there are people who constantly checked on me. Have you exercised? Have you taken your fruits? Did you take your medicine? And I have a whole lot of friends also who dropped food by at the door. And the sad reality, of course, is we couldn't talk or meet. But just the fact that at the back of my mind, somebody cared to know how I'm doing helped me go through this. Even though, as I said, I was so afraid of sleeping. I didn't know I was so afraid of death. But this is the one time I was actually afraid of death and couldn't sleep at night. So when I look back, it sounds a bit silly because you can die anytime, day or night. But I can't quite explain why I was afraid of the night. Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that either. But I'm pretty sure it was more scary then because you were sort of expecting it. We all know we're going to die, but we live each day just. We are able to get by because there's not really much threat on the day to day. But now that you are sick, it's suddenly like a reality that, okay, I could die tomorrow or in this moment, So I'm sure that just made it worse for you because now death is constantly on your mind. While on a day to day, we don't really have to think about it. We know we're going to die, but we don't really have to think about it. So now you are just confronting that fact like almost every moment. Yeah, and that's scary. It's not silly. It is scary, I'm sure, for anybody. That would be a lot. Really, really scary.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And I agree totally with your sentiments that every day you'll die, but it's not that obvious. But this was the one time that it can actually happen. It's this close to you. Yeah.
So from 2020 till now, what has been the hardest part for you of the pandemic?
So I've struggled with the fact that many of the people I know, friends, relatives, passed on. And there was nothing I could do to help alleviate that, like even to be with the people who are affected. The way we live is that you're there maybe during the meetings, you play a role, whether financially or moral support, and even to attend the burial and then follow up after that. So I've had a bit of struggle to reconcile that. And at some point, just the overwhelming bit where as you're trying to even reach out to one person, another message comes in. This farewell for so and so. So for that period when the pandemic was really, really bad, I never processed anything. I think I sort of packed things in shelves. And now is when I'm unpacking. And I'm not sure what was better. If we should have processed it that time or now that it's happening way, way after. So for me, that's what I've been struggling with. There's a sense of loss and a sense that you are never there for the person. And I've had a struggle reconciling with that. So I've sort of withdrawn and resigned to the fact that really, if it was possible, if everything was possible, I hope that those people know I would have been there. Yeah, it's just that circumstances, and this affected all of us, who are not able to be there. So I'm still working on that. And of course, the fear that something else like this might come. So you try and do your best. Now I know we've been told we don't have to wear masks. You don't have to do all those lots of things that we're doing. But you know how at the back of your mind, you're like, I don't think so. So not trusting that maybe we are past the hardest part of this and it's soon gonna be well. But I'm working on that. So the fear of this recurring. I'm struggling with that.
I think we're all waiting to sigh of relief. But I think from 2020, there's been a trend of when we think that, finally, now we can relax, then, we're told lockdown again, the numbers are increasing, a new variant, all of that. So it's a bit hard to, just settle in and be like, okay, things are getting better now. We're sort of getting back to normal. It's a bit hard to believe that something like that is happening or could happen just from the trends in the recent past. Then also, of course, since we've already experienced this, imagining something like this happening again inspires very, very real fear. Well, before, if we would think about a pandemic, it's something so removed. It's like, a pandemic, that's for, I don't know which century ago, we don't really think about it like that. But now that we've experienced it, the fear is very, very real. You mentioned processing the loss now, and wondering if this is better or if it was better if you did it back then. When things are very heavy, like they have been over the past 2 years, we don't really have time to catch a break and sit down and process and be like, this is what is happening. Let me sit through my feelings of what is going on. Because since 2020, it's been death after death. It seems like that's what it's been, death after death after death, disaster after disaster after disaster. And we are more busy trying to survive that we don't really have time to sit down and be like, okay, let me process what's going on, and maybe try and get to a better place mentally. But then when things slow down is when we're finally able to sit down and process everything, which is why I guess you're where you're at now. Everything now. You're finally able to process everything, while before you were on survival mode. There was no time for that. You're worrying about like, okay, where is the next income coming from? How am I taking care of my son? Now I'm sick. I need to get better. There's this new problem. There's this other problem. In all that chaos, there's no time to sit down and be like, my friend has died and I'm really sad about that. I need to grieve this. There's no time for that. So now that things have slowed down, it's easier for your mind to process all of this and for you to process all of this. And it's difficult because now it seems like everything comes at once. But, we just take it a day at a time and we try to process. How have you been coping with all of this?
So one thing I've told myself, and I keep telling myself, is at least I lived to tell the story. Yeah, that maybe is the greatest reason I'm still here. It's the reason I'm seated telling this story, that I actually lived to tell the story. That's good enough. And that above all, my health is restored or was restored, and I've learned to be content with what I have. I suddenly realized that I'm the reason maybe why someone also wakes up in the morning to do what they are doing, and I cannot afford to then give up. So with all those bad stories that happen to people and continue happening, because to be quite honest, I think this is when we are really feeling the impact. Yeah, less deaths, fine, less infections, maybe no infections at all at times, but there are other things that are now really being felt by people emotionally, physically, financially. This is when people are really going through that. But I'm out here to tell people that at least we lived to tell the story. Remember, you're not a statistic and you have to go on. And just like the caterpillar thought that the day has ended, just on the day that they thought their life is done, they turned into a butterfly, which means rebirth, which means fresh, fresh breath being given to you and life. So I'm trying to live a day at a time. There are days I feel bad about it. There are days I feel the losses. There are days I'm up and bright, running, and I've learned to embrace all this. And I think it's okay to have those moments and not pretend that they don't exist, because as we rightfully said, we're not able to deal with all those things. It's now that we are going through and reflecting. So we can't always be up jolly running every day. And the days we don't feel like, we just embrace that as well. But above all, grateful to be alive, to be healthy, and I'm content. I've learned to be more content than before the pandemic with what I have, because there's probably, that one person who's going on because I continued and I wasn't conscious about that earlier on. So that would be my way of handling it going forward. And I hope I can give hope to someone listening to us today that it's not all lost. Yeah, we can pick it up from where it stopped. But we don't have to pretend that it didn't hurt, that it didn't affect us, that we didn't lose. Really, we must process. Let's process.
That's beautiful. I like what you've touched on, the emotions. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, and that's okay. You just feel it all and then we keep moving. That's something I constantly tell my clients. Emotions, they come and go, and we're not meant to hold on to them at all. If anything, our beings are just a passage for those emotions. So they're supposed to come and go, whether it's the emotions we label as positive or the ones we label as negative. And the problem usually comes in when we're trying to hold on to an emotion too much or to run away from it. And we find that when, for the emotions that we call the positive ones, those are the ones we really try to hold on to. So when you feel joy, you just want to hold on to it and you never want to let it go. But then when an uncomfortable emotion comes up, say grief, we want to run away from it. But doing that really, it delays the feeling of that emotion, and that has its effects on you. It's just really important to acknowledge that, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Allow yourself to feel it, and then eventually it leaves you. All emotions will leave you. They come and they go, but only if you feel them. That's the fortunate or unfortunate bit, I don't know. It can be hard, but it's very necessary for you to allow yourself to feel it, and then it will leave you. That's it. So yeah, just like you said, allow yourself, whether it's happiness, sadness, joy, grief, whatever it is, allow yourself to feel it, and eventually it goes, and you'll be fine. So the final question, has there been any silver lining throughout this period? Any positive? Yeah.
A lot of positive as well. One of the things is I didn't know I was that strong. It's a situation where you look back and you're like, what? I pulled through. Well, of course, through God's help. So the strength to face this. And I can't quite say that I have overcome, because as we agreed, I'm still processing. And then I really got to sieve my friends, the people who are close to me. They are those that really stuck their neck out through that thickness. So just to really again redefine my circle of friends, it came out, and I hope they can say this about me as well, that who's really for you. It was during those times, those 2 years, that I have found out who's for me and who I'm also there for. Then just adjusting everything. You had no clue that you could stay for almost a year, literally on your own, minding your own business, because we were not able to do the social gatherings. And of course, we missed each other. We missed everything. But hey, who would have thought you can have a funeral with only 20 people, for example, or a wedding of 15 people? So just the learning that things can actually be done differently and you will still make it. So that paradigm shift. Also in my spending, there's a lot of things that I didn't use in these 2 years. One of them is my makeup. My friends and I keep laughing. We had to throw it away. It expired. We didn't need to wear certain clothes. So we don't need to buy lots of clothes, maybe. Shoes. And just a whole lot of other things that you really, really can do without. And you'll still be alive. So yeah, and also because of the so much time in our hands, as a result of all those adjustments, it helped me to do personal development. A lot of online courses, a lot of certifications during that pandemic, because the screen was your best friend, was my best friend. So there's been a lot of silver lining. And I'm still learning, because it's still here with us, and every day I pick something new that I wasn't used to. But it's not been easy. Yeah, you don't just suddenly wake up and say, I'm able to do this. No, it's been a lot of struggle adjusting to do all those things or learning new things. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Do you have any social media pages or anything like that where people can find you for financial advice that you'd like to mention?
Yes, I have a page for my company. It goes by the name Debt Management Solutions. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter, and I have a website, www.debtmanagementsolutions.co.ke. So you could reach out to me, and I purposely talk about myself or my struggles, my lessons in those sessions, so we can have a one-on-one or group talks. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We'll make sure to link all of that in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for the beautiful conversation and for the financial advice. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed myself. And let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing this. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.